Okay, so we've moved our way across to the west side of James Street. Again, I have to talk up over the cars. And so here you can see where the grade would have bent and then continued to turn to the northwest and then eventually heading west. So we're gonna follow the trail here. So one of the things that you'll notice, as I try to find my pedals here, is how we're continuing to climb. And I'm pretty sure this was done afterwards. And because of the fact that that piece there, this was done during the Canadian National Days, that piece there was elevated. So this piece of track had to continue to climb to meet that track. And we're going to talk about why that track is elevated. So we're now coming together with a previous video that we did where we explored the Empire Avenue branch, or the Empire branch that used to run to the east that way towards the Canadian Pacific Station. All right, so there's the still active mainline track, and so now we've arrived at Empire Junction. So again, we've done a little talk about this, but we're going to go over it again just because there's some new information that we need to take a look at. Okay, so basically this originally was not a junction. The junction was added later when, again, that Empire branch was constructed. You see there's a nice little concrete culvert in there with a nice little, oh sorry, it's a metal culvert with a nice little concrete collar on it. So this became a junction when that branch was added. So again, we're not quite sure when it was done. For sure it was here in 1911. And so again, you have this kind of funny jog that sort of happens with the track, right? So there's a jog because that part needed to mesh in with this part, which was basically the mainline track. So there's a little bit of a jog here with this track, which again is now part of the Kashabowie subdivision. So if we come out here, you can see that jog that I was telling about, and then it straightens out. So basically the line would have come in right here, and this would have been part of the main line. And so again, what's interesting about this is that this branch continued to be used after 1921, after they stopped running trains to the Canadian Pacific Station. What they did was, and we talked about this in the previous episode that we covered, the Empire branch, is basically they stopped running trains, but then the the trains running down this line, so the former Grand Trunk line, would have come down from the station in Fort William and then come down here and then continued on straight on. And this piece here basically was relegated to a spur, even though I kind of remember it. And this continued to be used, so that piece continued to be used until 1925. And then basically it was converted into, in the 1930s, it was converted into the mainline track where the train stopped running through that other part of Westward here and then started coming down into this area here. And so again, today this is part of the Kashabowie subdivision. There used to be a big series of sidings here, and we're going to take a look at, there's like a little sort of freight yard just up ahead. We're going to be taking a look at that, but what I'm going to do in the meantime here is I'm going to show you some maps and some timetables, and so you can kind of see what was happening here. All right, so we're gonna make our way along the bike path here, adjacent to the railway tracks, just simply because it's a lot easier to kind of get ourselves around. So again, there's where the tracks would have come together. I wonder what that sign says. I've been cutting down some trees here. Oh, it's an old CN no trespassing sign. There's an old, I don't know if it's an old, but there's a signal box sitting in the trees there. Okay, so we're gonna hop up through this little section here. This is kind of a, people are not supposed to cross the tracks here, as you can see by the sign, but people do anyway. So you can see how well worn the path is. So we're not going to go too close, but so basically you can see the line continuing here. So again, this would have been the main part of the Grand Trunk line going to the west, and you can see the elevation change. You can see how it's continuing to climb here, and it's going to and again, this is all new, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it when we get to, I don't know if you can see cars crossing over there. That's Neebing Avenue, and so there's a major crossing there, and we're going to talk a little bit about this elevation change. You can see here some of the remnants of this siding that was here. You can see bits of ties, and you can see it's all kind of widened out, and this was an old freight yard here. So you can basically see the loading docks and things like that in this area. Okay, so I don't think, it's been a while. I haven't lived in this neighborhood for a long time. Again, very familiar with this area as a kid. Now, not so much. See some old forts and things like that in the brush there. Okay, unless I come across something major, I'm gonna zip you ahead here until we get to Neebing Avenue. Okay, so we've arrived at Neebing Avenue. There's a level crossing up there. Now, this is where things get a little interesting, because you can see the elevation of the road to match the railway grade, and I'm pretty positive that this is not the original elevation. I'm pretty positive. This is not the original elevation, because as you're going to see, the modern CN grade, so the Kashabowie subdivision that runs by here, is way higher than the land around it, and that would have not been the case when the Grand Trunk was operating. So just to give you an idea, I tried downloading an app here. Okay, so according to the app, I'm sitting at 189 meters above sea level. Now, I can't trust my GPS because I didn't calibrate it. Okay, so 189, and then the device is telling me 197. So how many, what's that in feet here? So that's telling me 620, so the GPS is off by about 20 feet or so. So this is, so my device is telling me 646 feet, which is what the GPS is telling me. Okay, so in any case, the reason why we did that is because we want to see what the difference in the elevation is. All right, so we're going to make our way right up there where the level crossing is. Okay, so we're going to cross the street here. And so again, you can see the mileage here on the Kashabowie subdivision, so milepost 6.5. So my GPS tells me that we've gone up about at least 10 feet in elevation, and same thing with this, with the tracker. So we are way higher than we should be. So the original Grand Trunk line would have basically come through and continued straight. So this curves, and so again, this line was put in the 1930s, and it was a sort of a detour in the main line to hook it up with where the line used to run to into the Neebing Yard, which was built in the early 1920s. So again, the line would have continued straight through there, through to where the airport is. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our way this way, and you're going to see really the big height difference here. All right, so we've made our way further ahead. We are standing, best as I can tell, according to my GPS, right where the railway grade would have continued, and then heading straight west. So directly in front of us here is first of all a highway, and so you can see that, and an airport. So this is Highway 61. It's one of the major highways in the area. This is the highway that runs down to the border, eventually crossing into Minnesota, where it becomes Highway 61. And so as I mentioned, the Thunder Bay Airport is in front of us. It's very, very loud here, so I'm going to have to try to talk loud, but you can see the elevation of the modern railway grade. Okay, so you can see how much higher it is. So again, that was increased to allow the railway line to basically get up to the Neebing Yard, which had been built again in the early 1920s, right? And it's much higher than the surrounding area. So the grade would have passed right through here. Just on the other side of the airport terminal would have been a siding known as Vickers Siding. I don't know the name, maybe named after the Vickers family, which is a very prominent family here in Thunder Bay. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm basically going to show you, I'll show you a timetable, I'll show you where that Vickers siding is, and as well I'm going to show you some maps and stuff so you can kind of see where the line continues and where it ran through this area, and then you can kind of see where the modern grade kind of deviates and goes. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to pick this thing up on the other side of the airport, and there's a section there that we can hopefully follow for a little bit.